as a child, I thought being an artist was the greatest thing you could possibly be. The only trouble was it came with this tremendous sense of social responsibility. You were supposed to do something great, something that saved people, something that was so overwhelming. And it came with that onerous word talent. You were supposed to be talented. And so I knew what that word art and talent had to do with Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci. I just couldn't figure out what it had to do with me. Well, after worrying about this for a while, one morning, as if by magic, I found myself enrolling in the nearest art school, taking art history courses and some sculpture courses. And you know, for me, the minute I walked through that door was the best day of my life. Because, you know, I didn't know there was anybody else like me. I didn't know there were lots of people who loved handling materials, who loved working with them and seeing their ideas get worked out in 3 dimensions. The only trouble was I was a bit of an art nerd, and I walked around to everybody and I said, is this art? Is this art? How come this person gets to paint this board blue and call it art? And so I was holding forth in the hallway one day, and one of the professors catches me by the throat. He starts choking me to death. He said, who in the hell cares if it's art or not? Why don't you just go in there and make whatever you want to? Who's going to know the difference in 20 years anyway? Before I could get going, I had to figure out what birds and beavers and other natural shelter builders already knew about sticks, and that is that they have an inherent method of joining. If you drag a stick through the woods, you see what I mean. It entangles in everything. You start out like this, and pretty soon you're going like that. And that's really the simplest method of joining, and a stick has a little flexibility. So if you pull it through a matrix and let it go, it tends to snap back and hold itself in place. So that's the how, but the what. If you had seen me at the time, you would have taken pity on me, because I could spend maybe 5 minutes in a museum before getting a serious headache, having to run down the steps with clammy palms and go, you know, I think they've used all the good ideas up. Or you might have had the experience of looking at an art magazine and, you know, slamming it down and thinking, oh my God, you know, they've exploited every material. Or in the last census alone, over 1 million people in New York City said that they were visual artists. You have to say, hey, there are too many of us. But after worrying for about this for a while, and really worrying, I said, you know, I love to make things. I think the art world is just going to have to lump it. Yesterday I was up in Pescadero beneath Half Moon Bay, coming down the coast, and there's a willow farm there. And they just have the most beautiful willows you've ever seen. And they're going to bundle for me and bring them down. Usually I have to do that, but this time I'm lucky. I wanted to show you just a few things about materials, because when you end up seeing the pictures here and when you see the piece in the garden, you'll imagine that I have these long lines that run forever. But most of my material is about this long. It's just the drawing quality of the way you use the sticks and the way you build illusion that makes it seem like it just rolls on forever. This is of my friend Scott, and we're carrying materials into a show. And that's the way they look inside. And so this is, to me, this just looks like a big stack of potential. This is in Indianapolis. The city was about to expand their golf course, and so we were able to gather these really great maples out of this little area. And this is what they look like on the ground. And that really looks like a potential sculpture to me right there. You set parameters, and then you narrow your parameters, and you can kind of set an overall idea about how it's supposed to feel. And then within that, you just wing it. You know, you're reacting. You see some good lines, and then you start working with what you see. And very opportunistic, very haphazard in a way, but as you start narrowing your parameters, it leaves you little place to go. And the hypnotic effect in some ways comes from the idea that you can, that sticks are tapered. So if you organize those tapers in one direction and do a little other kind of drawing mess with it, that it seems to be leaping in one direction. So I've used that. And also there's a sense that you can blend the inside and out with a kind of line logic. So you think, oh, these lines are going in the door, so should I. And so there's a lot of ways of helping direct the viewer look at it with the lines, and also lead them inside and present interesting composition and so forth. I'm going to work at the top of the meadow. And I would like to be able to see it from the bottom of the meadow. I mean, I would like it to announce itself when you come through the door, through the gates. And so we found a site up there that's just about right. They put in a new lawn, and we're going to go just a little above that lawn. And as time goes on, now that we are seeing the materials we're getting, we found the site absolutely specifically, then I'll start thinking about the kind of thing that would look good there. And you know, we've got lots of concerns about whether we can find these bigger pieces that we're going to use for our structural base. We'll have some people come and help us. We'll make a sign-up sheet so that you know you won't waste your time if you come out. We'll really use your help. Generally, I just use folks that I can get because I believe everybody knows about sticks. This is the first building material that mankind had. And when children go through their building phase, they often not only get sticks because it's there, but because if they look at one, they see so much potential in it. You know, it's a spear, it's a building material, it's a this, it's a that. And so I think that sticks themselves at a deeper level and just enliven our imagination.
You know, you'll have some who don't mind being on top of 3 levels of scaffolding, and others who wouldn't go up there for anything under the sun. And some who have just a few moments to do, and that's it, and others who would like to be here all the time. And so, you know, it's sort of this, it's kind of like this project, kind of that interweaving of all these personalities.
I've been a basket maker working with natural materials for 25 years. And so this was just a perfect thing for me to come and do. So this is really the biggest basket I've ever worked on.
Not necessarily as easy as it looks, but it's not all that difficult either. It is my first experience with natural materials, but it's been fun and it's been interesting, and I really appreciate the people that have come out to see it, even at this unfinished stage.
There was a reporter out the first day saying, you know, well, why are you here and this and that? And I said, well, it's very much about process, and I like the concept of process, and I could tell that the way he works is process. But now that we've been working for several weeks, I think my favorite thing is just been working with Patrick. You know, he's so just wonderful with everyone who walks up. You know, he's right there, and he's got this great spirit, and he shares his ideas, and he's able to work with volunteer groups like this. And sometimes that can almost be overwhelming or a complete job in itself, but he does a really, really good job of marrying those two.
You're having everybody sign your work gloves because you're going to like retire them?
Yeah, when all my helpers, they sign my work gloves. I nail them on my studio wall, and they're the last written record.
So you do this with, you have the glove signing with all of your works?
Yeah,
you have like a collection?
Yeah, generally people that are helping me, it might be my sponsors, you know, whoever's there that is around get to sign.
Kind of like a memory of your helping hands.
That's exactly right.
All right.
So we had some heavy weather, but we only really had one day that we had to work fully in the rain. Well, it's not too cold, so it was easy to do. Since you're not used to rain, then it seems like a big impediment, but I'm from the East Coast. We have rain all the time, and warm rain is not such a big impediment.
Exactly. California rain is not the worst thing to have, I guess.
No,
when it comes by rain.
I think the piece will look good for about 2 years, and then, you know, the line between trash and treasure is very thin with these saplings, so and they just have to keep an eye on it, and when it starts looking kind of forlorn, they might have to think about taking it down. So that might be a little more than 2 years, I don't know. They'll just have to keep an eye on it. You've got dry weather here, so that means that it probably lasts longer.
So the weather will play a big part on it.
It plays a bit of a part. Ultimately, sticks, just like on all these trees, they degrade. I've done some private commissions, and that is a more tolerant place for entropy. because in a public space, everybody owns that space the minute they're walking through it, and they're very critical of a piece becoming less. So even though constant viewers might see that as an interesting phase, the first person that sees it just thinks it's a bunch of trash. Because the line between trash and treasure is very thin here. It's trash, then it's treasure, and it quickly can go to another level, you know.
A lot of times, as you take the full measure of a site, you start making some connections with it. In this case, I think I had to drive by the mission every day, and as I started conceiving this work, it got more of a tower shape, some kind of familiar vernacular architecture from the area. I was looking for something that had a known silhouette from the kiosk below the meadow, so that when you walked in there that you immediately saw something that was tall and could hold its own in the meadow, and that you would immediately identify as something, and that you'd be willing to go up there and explore further. And much as these old missions here have a kind of a united courtyard in between them or around them or behind them or something, this one has a kind of bigger circle that goes behind the tower. It's interrupted several times, but nonetheless, it's kind of got a circularity that's a kind of palisade, and it also allows you to walk within it. So that adds a level of dimension of not only can you go in the tower, but you can enter this wall through the sides of the tower. And then in addition to that, I was enamored of this big pine tree that's falling over behind us there. And I thought, well, now we'll just put the shadow of that through our whole piece as a kind of flying erratic. And so it became a hallway that intersected our wall, our circular wall behind, and added a kind of a strange immediate element that you could work your way through it. It's not straight, so that when you're in it, you simply feel the sense that there must be an ending somewhere. And so you start in it without knowing exactly where you're going, because it bends slightly so you can't see directly through it.
We came to look before he built it, and we saw the tree in the back there, and we thought this is the perfect spot for it. Now look, that's how she's weaving it in. Did you see that?
Watch.
Watch. There it goes.
The way it's all weaved together. Even she said you couldn't weave two together. It'd be hard.
So I always try to hope that I can capture the imagination of the people that are going to be able to view it, or that come to view it. And I think that the fact that you can preview it from below and work your way up, there's a way that you have to view it in 360 degrees. You can walk the path around the meadow and have a lot of cross viewing. So in one way you see it, and then as you move you change your perception of it a bit. Enjoy it. We hope the public will come and walk through it, see it, and see if we had any validity in building it, give their opinion.